Now described as a timeous meditation on South Africa's daring democratic venture, Soul of a Nation is Oyama Mabandla's latest offering, embarking on a quest for the rebirth of South Africa's values. This, of course, as the ANC proposes the formation of a government of national unity after failing to secure a majority in the recent national and provincial elections. So to chat a little bit further about this, we're going to be joined by lawyer and author Oyama Mabandla. Oyama, good morning. Thanks for your time here on the SABC at this hour.
Good morning, Lizzle, and good morning to your listeners.
Oyama, your offering couldn't have come at a better time, just given the moral and intellectual environment that we find ourselves in as a country. Perhaps you could, from your vantage point, describe the soul of our nation at this juncture.
Well, I think the soul of the nation clearly is buffeted. It's been buffeted for a while, you know. If you think about what has been happening the last 15 years, we've been growing at an average of just about 1%. You know, we had state capture, we had the outbreak of violence, you know, in KwaZulu-Natal and some parts of Gauteng in July 2021. We had COVID. We have an unemployment level that is at 42%, a veritable powder keg, for this republic. So the soul of the nation is ailing, it is buffeted, and I think it needs reinvigoration. And I think we can only do so through an all-inclusive national dialogue, as President Thabo Mbeki has called, to diagnose what it is that we ail from and to find the necessary elixir for it.
Well, Oyama, thank you for those opening remarks, because it's not serving as a conversation starter, given where South Africa finds itself in. I mean, you're of the view that South Africa's problems are beyond one party to, correct and salvage at this point. We need societal wisdom to be incorporated to promote that social cohesion. What might be done at this point, especially calls for political, economic reforms for our rebirth as a nation at large?
Well, I think what ought to happen is that at his inauguration or during his first speech to Parliament, President Ramaphosa, I believe he will be the president, must, like FW de Klerk on the 2nd of February 1990, call for a national dialogue. Call for President Thabo Mbeki and the foundation to lead the convening of a national dialogue, which can answer some of the questions that have been, if you like, enduring in our country for a long, long time. I mean, 42% is no joke, Lizzle. Also, we need to look into the malaise in our society. Why is our youth, the majority of our people, not actually bothering to engage with the political project or voting? When it was actually the youth that delivered this freedom, whether you're talking about the youth of 1976, those we call Sianyova, who fought a brutal system to a standstill and delivered, if you like, this democracy to our people. But they are missing in action now. And the question is why? Because we cannot dynamize, invigorate this democracy when we have the largest cohort of our people essentially checking out.
Well, social... yeah, absolutely. Do continue.
Yeah, I think it also goes into sort of the moral fiber of our nation, the condition of our nation. You know, our spirit is broken, is wounded, hence the violent crime, the rape epidemic, gender-based violence. We are a sick society that needs, a medicine, that needs an elixir for our sickness. And as I say, I think we can only find that in an all-inclusive, dialogue, an all-inclusive grand conclave that includes government, business, labor, the folks that are at NEDLAC, but goes further to include the faith communities, traditional leaders, artists, the youth, women, intellectuals or academia, think tanks, an all-inclusive, conclave that can diagnose and find a prescription to our illness.
Well, Oyama, speaking about that grand conclave and also the need to reinvigorate the soul of South Africa, I mean, We're looking at some of the more successful projects in this democratic dispensation, and the Springboks is a concept that comes to mind because the importance of nation building and social cohesion is of paramount importance for our country. Talk to us about the parallels that could be drawn at that point and how, that could also help us as a nation, perhaps on the back of what's transpired on that front, given where we're headed.
The Springboks are indeed a brilliant metaphor. I've wrote before that the Springboks have become a reliable elixir for our dissipating spirit as a nation, because they're a winning team. We have cobbled out of a Springboks, coming from different classes and racial groups, a winning South African team. And we can be that winning South African nation, but we can only do so, as I say, when we gather, dialogue, and find each other, so we can form a Springboks out of our nation.
Well, Oyama, let's then look at what's on the cards at this point, because we're obviously entertaining possibilities and probabilities. Government of national unity, that concept coming to the fore, but it's not a new phenomenon to South Africa. We know that the first democratic era government featured a government of national unity. On the back of that, I wonder what your thoughts are on this proposition as well. Some dubbed it as a 1994 2.0 of sorts, but if we're going to look at its content, if we're going to look at what it entails, what are you observing on that front? What are your critiques as well?
Well, I don't know much about it. I've not seen the contents of it. I would imagine that the minimum standard to be included in a government of national unity must and should be fealty to the Constitution, which is our foundational pact as this republic. I foresee a situation where, as the ANC has done, is invited all parties, to join with it in forming this government of national unity at such a critical time for our republic. As I said, this is a republic that is alien from alienation and all manner of social pathologies. In 1994, we were testing a new democracy. There was still no racial reconciliation in this country. So we needed the government of national union. And I think it succeeded. And I think we are at that juncture again this time. It's of a different making this time around. It comes out of a 15-year misrule by the governing party, that has cost it its support. But this has been telegraphed, prefigured. You can't have an unemployment levels of 42%. You can't have load shedding, water shedding, failing schools and public hospitals, crumbling infrastructure. You just go to the city of Joburg. It's a nightmare. It's frightening, or the city of Durban. So clearly something has gone wrong compared to what was happening between 1994 and 1999, and 2009, where the economy at an average was going at 3.6%. We came out of a junk status in 2001. The black middle class quintupled. The GDP to debt ratio, which we had inherited at 49% from the Boers, fell to 24%. The economy was growing at an average of about 5% the last 3 years of the Mbeki administration, something that hadn't been seen since 1965. We had a surplus for the first time in this country since its formation in 1910. We used that surplus to finance our massive social relief program because we still had high unemployment in this country, and invest in the infrastructure.
Yes.
So, in a sense, in many respects, this is a tale of two countries, but we are at this second place now, that is at the dystopian part of our 30-year journey. And that calls for something, so some reckoning, some reflection.
Oyama, let me come in there, just for interest of time, because now this national dialogue, what's going to form its framework, and also who's going to lead it? Talk to those calls, given this, turbulent history of South Africa, but also the evolution of the new dispensation, which you allude to in your book as well, broken out into 3 parts.
Well, I don't know. My advice is for the president to issue a call, a clarion call, like de Klerk did in 1990, and charge President Mbeki, who is a progenitor of this idea, and the foundations, the Thabo Mbeki Foundation, the Mbeki Foundation, Mutlante Foundation, Biko Foundation, Tutu Foundation, you name them, Kathrada Foundation, Lutuli Foundation, to be the conveners, the Clerk Foundation, the Afrikaner Board, to be the conveners of this national convention. They can set up then a secretariat under it, and then we can take it down to the regions, because we must hear from the people. That's how the Freedom Charter was crafted.
All right.
You know, the call then was, let us hear from the people. And it was then escalated up to the Congress of the People in Kliptown, where the Freedom Charter was drafted. But the Freedom Charter was a desire, a desideratum of our people.
Well, Oyama,
It
let's leave it then. Thank you for your time at this hour. Lawyer, political commentator, also Oyama Mabandla, weighing in 30 years into our democratic dispensation through his latest offering, Solve a Nation. This is coalition discussions continue in the country.